Protected topics for Paper 2, Edexcel GCSE Chemistry Exam 2024. Topic 1 is reactivity trends in the periodic table. So you should be able to explain how group 1 elements reactivity increases as they go down the group. This is because the outer shell electrons become further away from the positively charged nucleus, so they are easier to lose. And you should be able to explain how group 7 elements reactivity decreases as you go down the group, because the outer shell electrons are further away from the positively charged nucleus, so it becomes harder for the element to gain electrons. Remember that noble gases or group 0 elements are unreactive because they have complete outer shell of electrons. They are stable and they do not tend to gain, lose, or share electrons. Topic 2 is group 1 elements or alkali metal. So you should remember the physical properties. They are solids with low melting point and they have low density. Their chemical properties, they react with water to give hydroxides, react and hydrogen, react with oxygen to give oxides, react with halogens to give metal halides, and also react with acids to give salt and hydrogen. Remember that all of these reactions are a redox reaction and you should be able to write the ionic equation. The electronic configuration of any element determine its position in the periodic table because the outer shell electrons determine the group and the number of electron shells will determine the period. Topic 3 is group 7 elements or halogens. Remember their physical properties, so fluorine and chlorine are gases, bromine is a liquid, and iodine is a solid. The chemical property, remember the displacement reaction, so more reactive halogen displace less reactive ones from their salts. You should be able to identify the expected color change in the reaction at the end. Remember that these reactions are redox reactions, so the more reactive halogen will be reduced because it gains electrons to give halide, and the less reactive one will be reduced because it will lose electrons and to give the halogen. Topic 4 is the rate of reaction graphs and factor affecting the rate. You should be able to calculate the rate of the reaction from a graph or the data provided. They might ask you to draw the tangent at a certain point to calculate the rate of the reaction from the graph. You only need to calculate the gradient of the tangent at that particular point. Know the different factors affect the rate of the reaction and how to explain that effect in terms of collision. So increasing temperature increases the rate because there is an increase in the frequency of collision, and also because more effective collisions will be there because there is a higher energy. The concentration of solution, more concentration increases the frequency of collision. The same for pressure for gases. Increased pressure will increase the frequency of collision, and then increase the surface area to volume ratio will also increase the frequency of collision. You should be able to also to define what is a catalyst and how it's used and how does it increase the rate of the reaction. So a catalyst is a substance that is added to the reaction. It's not used up, but it increases the rate of the reaction or speeds up the reaction without being used. It does so by offering or providing an alternative pathway for the reaction with a lower activation energy. You should be able to draw and identify the lower activation energy with the use of the catalyst. You should also be able to identify some catalytic reactions from your chemistry knowledge. Topic 5 is energy level diagram and calculation of the enthalpy using bond energy. So remember the difference between exothermic and endothermic reactions. So in the exothermic reactions, the reactant energy is more than the product's energy, as we can see here in the energy profile. The reaction releases energy or releases heat, and there is an increase in the temperature. Remember that this is the activation energy, which is the difference between the energy of the reactants and the top point on the energy profile, and then the overall energy change is the difference in the energy between reactants and product. The overall energy change in case of exothermic reaction has a negative value. Endothermic reaction is the opposite, where reactants have lower energy than the products, and then the same for the activation energy. It's the difference between the reactants and the top point, and then the overall energy change will be the difference in the energy between reactants and the products. The reaction will take an energy, so there is a decrease in temperature, and the overall energy change here will be a positive value. Should be able to calculate the overall energy change or the enthalpy of the reaction, because they're going to provide you with the energies, the bond energies of all the bonds, and you can use this. So the overall energy change equals the all the energy gained to break all the bonds in the reactant minus the energy lost to make the bonds in the products. It should be a negative value if it's an exothermic reaction or a positive value if it's an endothermic reaction. Topic 6 is fuel and crude oil. Remember that crude oil are mixture of hydrocarbon. These are finite resource and they can be used as fuel and as feedstock. Remember how to separate the different fractions of crude oil using fractional distillation. And then remember that the fractions have different boiling points, viscosity and flammability. The increased size will increase the boiling point and the viscosity of the hydrocarbons or of the fraction, and it will decrease the flammability. You should be aware of the cracking, which is the break of the long chain hydrocarbons to make shorter chain hydrocarbons, which are more useful, used mainly as fuel, and also that makes a small molecule of unsaturated hydrocarbon, which is called alkene. You should be able to complete an equation for cracking. Remember the test for double bond, which is alkene, because alkene is one of the products of cracking, which is the bromine water test. You should be able to identify the color change in bromine water test, which is from orange to colorless. Hydrocarbons. Remember that hydrocarbons contain carbon and hydrogen only, and don't forget to write the word only if they ask you what is hydrocarbon. Remember that hydrocarbons include alkanes, and which are saturated hydrocarbons because they don't have any double bond, as we can see. And then we have alkenes, which are the unsaturated hydrocarbons because they have this double bond, which is the functional group of the alkenes. Remember the addition reaction of bromine to alkene, and you should be able to draw the product when bromine is added. Remember the homology series, which is a very common question in the exam. Homology series are a group of compounds which all have the same general formula. They have the same functional group, so they have the same chemical properties, but they show a gradual variation in their physical properties, such as the boiling points, and they differ by CH2 from the neighboring members. Combustion and problems associated with products of combustion. You should be able to differentiate between complete and incomplete combustion and write a balanced equation for both. Remember that complete combustion produces carbon dioxide, water vapor, and also heat. And incomplete combustion, there will be carbon monoxide and sometimes carbon or soot. You should know the different gases emitted by burning fuel and their associated impact. So carbon dioxide causes global warming. Carbon monoxide, which is one of the products of incomplete combustion, is a toxic gas that causes suffocation. Sulfur dioxides and nitrogen dioxides cause acid rain and respiratory problems. Soot or carbon particulate cause global dimming and respiratory problems. Topic 9, alcohols and carboxylic acids. You should be able to name the first four members of alcohols, which are methanol, ethanol, propanol, and 1-butanol. Remember the function group of alcohol is the OH. This is the function group of alcohols. You should know how to manufacture ethanol through the fermentation of sugar to give ethanol and carbon dioxide using yeast. Ethanol can be concentrated from the fermentation solution by fractional distillation. Ethanol can be oxidized to give ethanoic acid, which is the carboxylic acid, and you should be able to use any of the first four members of the alcohol to identify the product of the oxidation as a carboxylic acid. You should know the structure formula of the carboxylic acid function group, which is this function group, which is the carbon with the double bond oxygen and then the OH. And you should know all the acid properties of carboxylic acids, where they have, when they dissolve in water, they have a solution with a pH less than 7. They react with metals to give you salt and hydrogen. They react with metal oxides and hydroxide to give salt and water, and they react with carbonate to produce carbon dioxide. Topic 10, polymers. You should be able to draw the addition polymer from alkene like this one, and you should be able to identify the repeating unit. This is the repeating unit for this particular alkene, and this is for any polymer, whether it's addition polymer or condensation polymer. You should be able to name the small molecule product from condensation polymerization, which is water, and you should be able to draw the product of the condensation polymerization. Condensation polymerization comes from a reaction between a compound which has dicarboxylic acid and another one which has two hydroxyl group, or we call it diol. You should remember that naturally occurring polymers are starch, and the repeating unit for starch, or the monomer for starch, is sugar, DNA, and the monomer is a nucleotide, and protein, the monomer is amino acids. Topic 11 is gases in the atmosphere. You should know the Earth's early atmosphere and how it changed. So nitrogen increased due to volcanic activity, water vapor condensed to make oceans, carbon dioxide decreased because at the beginning it dissolved in water and formed sedimentary rocks, and then later this was via photosynthesis. Oxygen increased because of photosynthesis. You should know the greenhouse gases, which are carbon dioxide and methane, and the human activity that increase these gases in the air, which are fuel, the use of fuel and farming, and the effect of greenhouse gases on the average Earth temperature and the implication of the global warming. Topic 12 is the qualitative analysis. You should be able to identify the ions in any unknown salt using the results of the test, the different tests provided from the tests that I will show you now, or you should be able to plan an experiment to identify the different anions and cations in a provided compound. So all the tests that you need are: first, test for gases. Remember that hydrogen gives squeaky pop sound with a burning splint, and oxygen reignites a glowing splint. Chlorine will bleach litmus paper, and carbon dioxide will turn lime water cloudy. And then ammonia, when heated with sodium hydroxide, the gas produced, which is ammonia, this is for ammonium compounds, a gas will be produced which will turn litmus paper blue. Test for metals. First of all, the flame test. You should know and memorize the different colors for the different metals. So lithium will give you crimson red color, the flame, crimson red color for the flame. Sodium will give you yellow, potassium lilac, calcium orange red, and then copper green. Remember the sodium hydroxide test as well. So when you add sodium hydroxide solution to a solution of a metal salt, the calcium, aluminium, and magnesium will all give you white precipitate. However, if you add excess of sodium hydroxide, only aluminium will give you a clear solution. So this is a way that you can differentiate between something like magnesium and aluminium. With the same test, which is sodium hydroxide, for copper 2 plus will give you blue precipitate, iron 2 plus green precipitate, and iron 3 plus will give you brown precipitate. Test for anions. Test for halides, chloride, bromide, and iodide. When you add dilute nitric acid first and then silver nitrate solution to the solution of the halide compound, chloride will give you white precipitate, bromide cream precipitate, and iodide yellow precipitate. Test for sulfate. First you add dilute hydrochloric acid, then barium chloride solution, a white precipitate will be formed. And then test for carbonate. You add dilute acid like HCl, carbon dioxide is produced, and then you can bubble the gas through lime water, and lime water will turn cloudy. Topic 13 is nanoparticle, which is very common in your exam. You should know that nanoparticles have high surface area to volume ratio, and you should be able to calculate that ratio from the given data in the exam. You should know the advantages and uses of nanoparticles and the controversy about the use of nanoparticles, like they have unknown long-term effect and the fact that they don't have enough testing. And then math skills. There will be quite few questions which will require mathematical calculation. So they would ask you to identify the molecular formula of a compound based on data provided. So remember to calculate the number of moles for each element in a compound by calculating mass over the relative atomic mass for the elements. And then you can see the ratio between the different elements in the compound, and you can then calculate our identity